Trauma, toxic stress, broken habit, and hurting heart don't define destiny, but peace isn't passive. It requires an exchange. To create a flip and access peace in the middle of the pieces, you are challenged to make an exchange of the lies that have kept you mentally hostage in basement moments. Resilience isn't about bouncing back, but bouncing forward. Living Strong, the flip side of adversity, brings powerful stories and fearless conversations from experts in the field of business, relationships, emotional, physical, and mental health, and faith-based communities. Each episode creates a brave space with powerful tools from authentic connections. Tune in as we dig in with Dr. Jackson on the flip side of adversity. Hello, and welcome to the flip side of adversity. I am Dr. Deirdre Jackson, the CEO and creative behind Living Strong Consulting. And I am so excited about the opportunity to talk about something that honestly I've had client after client talk about. And that's, how do I make the next right decision? Or if you found yourself just literally stuck, or even in ministry, if you've said, you know what, I'm going to pray about it, and you've been praying about it and still haven't gotten to the action step, well, I am excited because we have the Decision Lab episode for you. And I've been waiting for weeks to do this. I had the opportunity of meeting our guest in Atlanta. We were both at a Book Profits Club event. And so shout out and thank you to Terea Vision Avant for her making this connection for me. But I've been excited. There's something when you're in a space and a human being just continues to radiate, regardless of where you are in the room. Somehow your eye catches the sight of this person. That was me. In the whole weekend, it was just something about her light. And I reached out and asked if, you know what, can you share your light with my listeners? And then to discover her wisdom behind decision making. So I know you're sitting on the edge of your seat. You're like, well, Deirdre, who is it? Her name is Jessica Frew, and she is a wife, ex-wife, mom, stepmom, and a bold action taker. She believes that we find true peace, connection, and confidence by making the next right decision. Jessica helps you make clear, confident, and concise decisions to lead a bold life that feels in alignment with who you were created to be. Through her triple B decision-making process, you can find Jessica on Instagram at Hey Jessica Frew and on her podcast, Your Next Best Decision. So welcome to the Decision Lab, and thank you for being on the flip side of adversity. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me and for that very beautiful introduction. I feel very humbled at the moment. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. It was nothing that I said was fluff. I have to admit, just that entire weekend, I just kept catching, you just kept catching my eye. The color, the radiance, the boldness, all of it. That I've got to meet her, and I'm just so excited. And already, Dr. Curry, has already commented in the in in the comments. She said, "Beautiful." I know Dr.
Oh,
Curry,
thank
right?
you.
Yes, indeed. And guess what, Dr. Curry? That is not a screensaver. It is real. The wall behind her is all flowers. I know, right? Just radiant, and it just speaks to her soul. And so I've been excited, and we talked a little bit about this in our intro. Um, in preparation for this conversation, I've had client after client. What they've been explaining to me, I would actually call decision paralysis, where
Mm,
they sit in this place, they have overthought it and they still haven't decided. Or like I jokingly said, like in ministry, you'll hear people say, "Oh, I'll pray about it." Girlfriend, you have been praying about that for months now. It's time to act now. Or they're just so filled with so many ideas, they can't see their way through. And so I just really want to immediately jump into this and ask you kind of what are you seeing as a trend that is having us at this stuck place where we're paralyzed in our decision making? What are you noticing?
So there are two things that I think really happen here. One is that we have been taught from a very young age that we can't trust what it is we think we want and need. We need to have somebody else tell us it's okay. We need like some great thing from God or somebody telling us, like, you go, girl, like it's okay. And so we get stuck there. And then we also get stuck in, oh my gosh, it just like went out of my head. That's the major one where we get stuck. Oh, I remember. We get stuck in needing to know the outcome on the other side. We think, well, what if it doesn't go the way I envisioned? What if it's not exactly how I planned? What if like this happens? And we have all of these things. And so I have ways to work through these, both of these things that happen to us. But yeah, those are the two major things that keep us in this spiral, the overthinking, or maybe we know what we need to do, but we're afraid to take action on it. We're waiting for that permission, whatever it is. Those two things really keep us stuck in inaction, even if we kind of know where we're going.
I so echo that truth. I have to say, when I think about even even like thinking about like I'm waiting for some huge sign, or I'm
Mhm.
waiting for something or someone to say yes, do this, because I've had clients who will come into a coaching session and they literally are just waiting for me to say yes, that's what you should do, and I don't, because you're not going to blame me. Well, you told me. No, own your power. But
Yeah.
I even with that, and I think that might also be tied to sometimes some deeper things. You referenced
Mhm.
how sometimes there are experiences that have had us doubt
Mhm.
ourselves. And if you will allow me, I have been kind of stalking you in preparation, doing my homework. There's this quote on literally on your website that says, you said, whether you like it or not, your body learns to automate many of your decisions to make it easier on your brain. If you have trauma informing these decisions, if you have ways that you have learned to make decisions, then you are not getting as involved in the decision making process as you realize. And that, especially when we talk about the flip side of adversity, how
Mhm.
sometimes the stuff that's happened to us creates a filter to our freedom to actually get involved in the decision
Yeah.
making process. So, when you think about those barriers or the things in our past, what would you say the impact that that stress or trauma or broken narratives have on the decision making process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge impact. And mostly what it does is it creates judgment. We have these learned ways of thinking. So if we've been through trauma, betrayal, like things like that, we often have been gaslighted. We have been told, what we feel isn't true, what we want isn't right. All of these things have been fed to us. And so then when we go to make decisions, we still carry that, whether we're in relationship with somebody who has told us that or not. We are now gaslighting ourselves. We are now manipulating ourselves of like, oh, but that can't be right. That can't be true, whatever. And all of us have some of this in us anyways. And of course, we don't want to be intentional about every decision. Like it is great that our brain automates a lot of our decisions because we make a lot of decisions, but we want to be intentional about the bigger ones, and also things like who are we and what do we want to do and understanding and knowing ourselves. But this has been shut off in us at a very young age. So this starts with well-meaning, intentioned adults, parents in our lives who are like, they will tell kids, and we hear this all the time. I'm guilty of doing this with my children, I'm sure, being like, "Oh, it doesn't hurt that bad. It's not that big of a deal. You're fine. You shouldn't want that. You shouldn't feel that way." And so from a very young age, we are taught that what we want, what we feel, what we desire is wrong, and that we need outside validation to make these decisions. And then as we get into teen years, that amplifies. We have teen years where it's like, you need to dress this way, you need to wear these shoes, you need to be in these activities so that you can fit in, so that you can be accepted. So we shut down who we are even more. And then as you keep going, you add any trauma onto that. Even like religion can shut this down in ourselves. We're waiting for some leader to tell us what to do, or those types of things get mixed in there. But there's so many influences that tell us we can't trust what it is we want and need. And so we shut that down and we think that we're wrong and we judge ourselves. So we have to release this judgment that's so deeply ingrained into us of what it is we want and need and desire so that we can move forward. And I firmly believe that those desires, the feelings, the things that are within us are given from a higher source.
Yeah.
Whatever you believe in, I firmly believe that those are given to us to direct us. And it's when we come into that, when we stop judging those things and own them, then we get to show up in this beautiful way that we were created to.
Mm, that is so beautiful. I think about even that image that if I could begin to actually access and believe the thing that was given to me, it was given to me. It wasn't given to that other person to decide whether or not
Yes.
it's right. It was given to me. So trust the fact that it was given to me and that I am prepared or am being prepared to be the answer for that moment. So many layers, so many layers.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
what would you say if I'm acknowledging the fact that I've got some automation to undo? What would be some first steps to begin to release myself from the artificial, I'll say artificial automatic responses?
Yeah. So we have to start with releasing the should in our life is what I call it. We have to release that should. And ultimately, what should is judgment. It's an easy way for us to identify where we are judging ourselves, our feelings, whatever. And we do it so much. So, women that I work with, this is the first step we go through. You have to understand and see and start hearing how much you are judging yourself. So, every time you think, oh, I shouldn't want that, I should do this, I shouldn't feel this way. I should go to this event, like whatever it is. Then you were like, oh my gosh, I am judging myself all over the place. It comes down to what clothes we wear, how we should do our hair, how we show up in life. And it's like deep. And this is like, once you hear it and start seeing it, then you realize how deep it is. That's when we can start unraveling it. That's when we can address it and start to understand ourselves and why it is we want what we want. But I will put every client I work with, we go through what I call an unshooting challenge. And it lasts for at least a week, sometimes longer, but just so we start getting that consciousness of how much we are judging ourselves.
I love anytime that there's a challenge to rewire our thinking. I think even that ability to become more aware of the language that we're using on ourselves, that's creating a barrier for ourselves, is huge. It's so a challenge that is right up my alley. And I'm wondering is so you use the word kind of judgment, sometimes shame, the shoulding.
Mm.
Have you encountered where emotions that we're holding or recycling, how do you feel emotions might be also playing a role in ineffective or stalled decision making?
I personally believe and feel that we have made our emotions mean something about us. And so we are afraid to feel them sometimes, embrace them, acknowledge them, understand why they're there, so then we can just release them and move on. I think most of the time when we are carrying an emotion and cycling through and like it's getting us stuck and making it so we can't move forward, it's because we're suppressing it. And but it's still there. If you're suppressing it, it's still there. And so it's this idea that if we just allow ourselves to embrace it, like anger is one that a lot of us feel shame around having. Well, I can't be angry because that means something about me. Like we all have different things that it means. So instead of feeling that, we just carry it. We just have it there in our bodies and in our souls, and we can't create space for something new. We have to feel it. We have to like acknowledge it, and then we can actually release it and invite in something that feels a whole lot better and that serves us and propels us forward instead of keeping us stuck. I mean, shame is such a big one that keeps us stuck where we will carry the shame, but usually we're feeling shame about feeling something. Like shame's just this weird thing that circles around. So when we can understand that it's there and that it doesn't mean something about us, like it just is information about who we are. And when we take it as information, we're like, I'm going to understand this, I'm going to sit with it, then we get to move forward.
So often, as human beings, we are trying to outrun an emotion or shove it down. And, and the beauty of what you just shared is that we're actually giving ourselves permission to actually feel it and not attach it to our character. That this is literally just a response signal. And so we don't have to attach it to something else. Just recognize that it's a response signal telling me, giving me information. One of the greatest ones I think that impact decision making is fear, and you use some of the big ones in your very opening comment. I think about the what ifs. So we stall out from the emotion of fear because we're creating this what if scenario. So if I make a poor decision, so, okay, so say I move and it ends up not working out the way I thought. What do I do with that? Do I then say, oh, I made a bad decision. Now I need to rethink everything? Or what do you walk your clients through to get past, even if it's not the greatest outcome?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I try to view decisions as kind of neutral. We're not making bad decisions. We're not making right decisions. We're not making wrong decisions, like all of these words that we put on. We're making a decision and we're making the next best decision for us. It doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's what we needed next. So if we make this decision, going back to like moving, and we get there and we did it and we're like, oh crap, this was definitely not where I wanted to be. It's not what I thought it was. This is an opportunity to learn. this doesn't mean this was the wrong decision. It means that I needed to have this experience. I needed to go through this so that I could understand this is really not where I want to be. The thing that gets us hung up is our ego of
Mm,
saying, oh, I don't want to admit though that I was wrong. Like this moving's expensive. Like no matter how you do it, it's expensive. And so it's like, I don't want to admit I'm wrong and I made this financial mistake or whatever. I'm like, you didn't make a mistake. This is what you needed to understand very clearly. This is not what is right for you. And
mm,
so when we can understand that sometimes our gut is going to lead us towards something that we are going to do that is then like, oh, this wasn't the right move, we can very clearly head the other direction, and that is a gift. That is like having clarity. And when we are willing to see that, when we are willing to step out of that ego and say, oh, okay, this was clearly the wrong decision, I'm going to own it and shift to something different, then we have the power back in our court. We have that power to then say, okay, what is right for me? And we don't sit in it longer than we need to. That's where that concision piece comes in. Like the sooner we can release the ego, the faster we get to identify, oh, this wasn't great. Why wasn't it this the right thing for me? What isn't fitting here? How can I find something different? What would feel better?
that whole process, first of all, I love the fact that you are unpacking this is an ego issue. Um, and it is interesting to me that it's an opportunity to not fall into like the failure bucket where we're categorizing things as a failure and therefore that somehow stops us, or we're in a pit where I've got to climb out. You're literally just saying, oh, this is giving me information that I need to do, or I need something else, or I even learned something of what I don't want.
Yeah.
That journey is one, if we're not clear on who we are, we could absolutely get stuck in a place of confusion. Do you agree?
100%. And this is why in this process, we have to come back to knowing ourselves. We are evolving into like people. We don't stay stagnant. We aren't the exact same. There are things about us that might stay the same, and that's beautiful and wonderful. And also, we need to get to know ourselves in this season of life. So people are like, oh, well, I did that work. I know who I am. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting this. And this is that flip side that you talk about. There's a catalyst that will put us in a situation, and we're like, I have to get to know myself in this new reality. I've been through divorce. I've been in a, like, I'm in my second marriage. I'm a step parent. I'm a parent. Like, all of these things, I have had to get to know who I am within these and who, like, what parts of me do I take here? What parts of me aren't necessarily serving me? Or do I need to tweak this little part of me that I want to keep? But, like there's this process we go through in these catalyst moments in our life that force us to get to know ourselves again.
The opportunity to recognize that we don't have to navigate this process carrying guilt, I feel like you are setting somebody free.
Mm,
And just recognizing that this doesn't have to be a guilt journey. Um, and we have mentioned off screen this journey of recognizing that as we are evolving, that when we recognize that we are not the same person we were X number of years ago, I think the tricky part becomes as we are growing, evolving, and becoming different roles, we sometimes will attach who we are to a new role, and therefore our decisions about, or even our ability to know what we need, gets so muddy because we've
mhm,
attached this new version to somebody else. So therefore, I can't even get to what decision I need from me. All my decisions are driven by some new role that I'm in. When I think about how people lose their identity in other roles and how that can make decision making so difficult, what are some things that you've noticed when we lose sight of who we are because we've evolved and now we have a relationship that's taking the place of our identity? We're now attaching it to the new person that's in this stage in our life.
The thing that happens when we put our identity based on somebody else, based on a role or relationship, is we get very stuck. And it does keep us in fear. It keeps us like, well, if this person changes, then that means something about me. If they do this, or if I lose this relationship, that it means something about me. And I've even thought a lot about this recently because I share my story about my ex-husband very
Mhm.
openly. We were both raised in a very conservative Christian religion. He came out as gay. We ended up getting divorced. We've remained friends. And I think, like, who am I outside of this story? Like, is this my whole thing? If I didn't have his story with me, am I still somebody people are interested in? Am I still, all of these things that we have to unpack and realizing, okay, but like, who am I? We were discussing too, like, it's hard for women to say what they want, to say who they are outside of a relationship with somebody else. And it really keeps us stuck when we pin ourselves to somebody else. It keeps us in shame. It makes other people's decisions, it means something about us instead of just them living their life. And that is a really hard, heavy place to live because we have no control over somebody else. We have no control over our children. We have no control over our partners. We have no control over our friends. And if our identity is just stuck on who these people are and not something that's within us,
Mhm.
we have given away all of our power and we are going to be stuck in a world we cannot control. We're in a box and we can't get out.
This is golden. I shared, yeah, I'm, people are like, wow, exactly, right? This is golden because if I am attaching my worth, my value, who I am to someone else, or even to a business, or to a job, or a position, when it comes down to making decisions about what I need, I can't even access that.
Oh,
They're so far, it's so far away. I was sharing with you how literally yesterday I was asking professionals, and it did just so happen, we're going to do the research to see if men are in the same place, but it just so happened that it was a series of women who I asked them, tell me 7 things that define your identity. And literally the statement of, well, my children are my identity, or my job is my identity. I'm a teacher. That's my identity. Like, oh, so when I get to the questions around, so articulate what you need, they were stuck. They literally
yes.
could not tell me what they need, which I feel would then stifle making clear decisions for your own growth. What are your thoughts?
Oh, 100%. This is the main part of what we do in the programs that I teach, in the work that I teach, is just helping, and I work mostly with women, helping women come back to themselves and get to know themselves again. Because for so long, they have put themselves in these positions like, this is who I am. I am a wife. I am a partner. I am a businesswoman. I am an employee. I own my own business, like whatever. I am a mom, I'm a stepmom. Like, we have all these roles, and those are important parts of us. Like, we are not denying the importance of these things in our lives. And also, you need to know what it is you want and need outside of these. So, what things that I do, you asked, like, this is another challenge that I give women that we work through. And I call it a trust your gut challenge of connecting back to yourself, where I will tell women, you have to pick one thing to do today that is just for you and you're not taking into account anybody else. So it's things like, and these are little things that we focus on. How do you want to do your hair today? How do you want to, like, what clothes do you want to put on your body? Not what you've been told you should wear, not what you think is, going to be approved by somebody else. What do you want to wear? What food do you want to eat? I always say, like, pick one meal that is just something you want to eat outside of all of the noise that is around you, outside of what my kids want to eat, what my partner wants to eat, like all of these things. Release all of that. What is it you want? And it's crazy because we are like, oh my gosh, I have no idea.
So often, right? So
Yes.
literally will sit with a blank face.
Hmm.
Oh, oh.
And so yeah, it comes down to taking time to get to know ourselves on it, like the small things, and then building that up and taking the next steps. And it is the most freeing work you will ever do. And it will create, people think it's going to push people away, but because you are so connected to yourself at that point, it brings deeper connections with the other people in your lives. It is amazing. And I know people don't believe me when I say that. And I'm like, when you are in it, you will feel it. And when you take one step towards that, you are going to realize that. Like, if you are showing up as yourself, people want that. They are drawn to you. I mean, you talked about at the beginning me having this light or whatever. I hear this all the time, and it is the greatest compliment and incredibly humbling. But it is because, and I show up as myself. I am confident in who I am and who I know myself to be. Now, are there moments that I am like stuck in imposter syndrome or have a breakdown? Like, that stuff still happens. But when it comes down to the core of it, I know who I am. And that attracts people, that draws people in. It's amazing what it does when you know who you are and you show up in it.
Well, you walked right into something that I've been curious about because someone actually asked me recently. So, what role does your actual community, your circle, play in impacting quality, confident decision making? How important is your community, your circle in this?
I could answer this like two very different ways.
We'll take them
Your
both.
community, yeah, your community is important. Like, they impact you. They they're going to impact your decisions if you allow them to. You do not have to allow people in your community to impact you. Now, as you embrace who you are, your community might shift. The people closest to you might shift and pivot. And I think that's one of the reasons we are so afraid to embrace who we are. But it is the most freeing thing. Even if your community gets smaller and more tight knit, that is beautiful because it means you have the people who are really there cheering you on and embracing who you are. And it means you are releasing this pressure to be somebody you are not. But I think no matter what, like, I've stayed in communities where don't really I don't know that I fit anymore, but there are things I love about that community. And so I feel great there. Like, people outside would look in there and be like, Jess, you do not fit in here. Like, this is not you. And I'm like, yeah, but I do because I fit within myself. I have a knowledge who I am, and these people don't have the power to pull me away from that. And so it's once you figure that out, then you can kind of like stretch those communities and be like, I don't really fit here, but I do because I feel good. And that's all that matters. You don't keep yourself in communities anymore that don't serve you. I actually dropped a podcast episode yesterday about communities and how they impact us and all of this. So that's like the short version. Like, yes, they're going to have an impact, and you have to evaluate, Is this community really serving me? Am I able to embrace me within this community, or is it a community maybe I need to step away from for a while? Doesn't mean you have to get rid of them. Doesn't mean you have to completely like cut all ties, but maybe you need space for a bit. Maybe you need to have a different relationship within this community, and that's okay. People are afraid of that, and really, it's like the greatest gift you can give yourself.
So I actually want to get really granular because in this
Mhm.
moment, I'm thinking of people who are then saying, but if I decide to do that, such and such isn't going to like it. Or
Ah, yes.
so this, oh, that colleague is not going to like this decision. When someone is playing that tape, as a coach in this decision lab, what do you say when someone says, "Oh, I haven't made that decision because so and so isn't going to like it"?
Yeah. So, in this process, when we come back to knowing ourselves and what it is we want and need, there's a very cool thing that happens where we release this need to have other people's approval. We release the need to defend our actions. We release this deep desire to be proven right or wrong. We just understand that we are doing the thing that we need to do. And if so and so doesn't approve of it, we are not responsible for their thoughts, feelings, and actions. This comes back to women are very much conditioned to be people pleasers. We have from very young age been conditioned that we need to take care of other people. We need to be aware of everything that they could possibly be feeling or thinking about us. And it's bullcrap. Like, quite honestly, it's just
And exhausting.
ridiculous.
It's
It is
exhausting.
so exhausting. And as you release that, that is the number one thing women tell me is it's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize how heavy this was. And you will see women like I just relaxed my
Mhm,
shoulders even thinking about it.
mhm.
You see them physically relax and emotionally relax. Many women who have been told, oh, you are too much, you're too emotional, you're too over the top, whatever, it's because they are carrying such a heavy load of other people's opinions and they have this big weight. And so, yes, they are strung out trying to think about all of these things. So, when you know who you are, and in the lab we go through this process of getting to know ourselves, understanding our intention behind the decision. So if you have a specific decision that you're making and you're like you keep going back to I know somebody's going to have opinion about this. I just worked with a woman and she's trying to go through a divorce and her mom keeps telling her she shouldn't get divorced. Don't do that. You shouldn't do that. And she's known for years she wants to get divorced, but it's her mom that's keeping her there. And I'm just like, but you know your intention behind this. You know the reasons why. When you are firmly grounded in that and release the shame that you carry, you can make that decision and release the need to defend it or have anybody else approve of it. And again, we talked about freedom a couple times. This is freedom, is being able to understand that and knowing that whatever consequences are on the other side, again, it's just information. If this person, if your colleague really has this hard of a time with it and something becomes of it, is this really somebody you want to keep working with?
Right,
Probably not. It's
right.
information.
Right, right. I feel like you have been giving us nuggets along the way, but you actually have cultivated a process for this called the triple B decision making method. Are you willing to share a little bit about what is this
Mhm.
triple B decision making method?
Yeah. So it's three different, I know this is so weird. I loved the Beatitudes growing up, and I think this like influenced my triple B decision-making method because, well, and my dad. My dad influenced this as well. But be bold, be humble, and be gentle. And actually, they go in the reverse order of what I said. So first we are going to be gentle with ourselves. And I think when we think of like healing ourselves or trusting our gut or coming back to our intuition, like whatever, there's all this talk around all these things. We think we have to add all of these things in. We need to add in meditation. We need to add in breath work. We need
Mm,
to add in like all of these things. And being gentle with ourselves is understanding we get to actually release things. We get to take things off of our plate. We are going to simplify our lives. We are going to release those shoulds. So that is the very first step. We are going to release the judgment. We are going to release the shoulds. We are going to release things that we thought we had to do that we really don't have to do. My husband was so great when we first got married. I would always be like, but dinner, I gotta make this nice elaborate dinner and all these things. He's like, Jessica, we can eat mac and cheese tonight and like simplify it. I'm like, oh, we could. And sometimes that's what we need to like release this heaviness we put on ourselves to simplify. So first we are gentle. We are going to be gentle with ourselves. The second part of it is be humble. This does not mean you're a doormat. This does not mean you're getting locked on. In fact, it is quite the opposite. This is where we gain understanding about ourselves. This is where we gain this knowledge of like, but why do I want it this thing? We get curious. Why do I feel this way? Is this really bad? Is this really wrong? Like we get clear on what we believe instead of what we have been told we should believe about these things or what any of that. We release those things by getting curious about what it is. And then number three, we're going to be bold. We are going to take bold, imperfect action that is right for us. Like that's the next best decision for us. And we are going to do that. And then we're going to, first of all, celebrate that we did it. We're going to be like, yes, I acted on my gut intuition because that's how we rewire the brain. So I'm like, I did something good. I trusted myself and I went and did it. And I'm okay. I'm still safe. I'm all right. And now I'm going to make the next best decision. I'm going to understand what this information is. I moved to the wrong place. This was a crap decision. It cost me a lot of money, but now I have information and I'm going to pivot and understand what I can do now. We're not just going to beat ourselves up for it. Again, we're not going to deny the feelings that come along with these things. We're going to feel those. We're going to acknowledge them. Why am I feeling this? Is this from conditioning that I have? Is this just real? Like, that was rough. But now I'm going to take it and I'm going to utilize it for good. So
Oh,
those are the three B's: be gentle, be humble, be bold. They all work together to help us through this decision-making process.
I love process because oftentimes in trauma work, we talk about rewiring the brain.
Yep.
And you literally have done posts about how we actually train our brain and then and then get frustrated, but we actually trained it to respond in this way. And so it sounds like the triple B is literally a retraining process with consistent implementation. Can you share one of your best decisions? So you're the guru of the decision making lab. So you know what? I just rethought that. You said you were an open book. The worst decision and you recovered from it. One of the best decisions and you have celebrated yourself for it.
Okay, these actually overlap. And my worst decision, I really do not view as my worst decision. But I know from the outside, people, especially I'm sure my parents, were like, what are you doing? And honestly, on the other side of that, I had people who were like, yeah, you go, girl. I dated my gay ex-husband again after we were divorced. After he had an affair, after he came out, we were officially divorced, like all of these things. I dated him again. And I knew this was the next best thing for me. It was absolutely crazy and a horrible time of my life. We committed to 6 months, we dated for 5, but we both needed the information from that of, oh my gosh, we are done. Like we made the right decision. Go live and let live. We're done. And in this time, as we were dating, we had moved into the same church congregation, and my current husband, unbeknownst to me, had moved into our same church congregation, and he and my ex-husband became friends. They had a mutual friend they would go mountain biking with. They would meet at my apartment complex because The mutual friend lived there. And one night, towards the end of Steve and I dating, we both knew it was done. We just hadn't said the words. I knew they were all meeting up there to ride. And I went up to say, like, oh, goodbye, and bring Penny, our daughter, because we had a daughter together. And Steve, my ex-husband's getting ready to leave, and he's like, "Hey, this is Matt. Matt goes to church with us." I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen Matt before." I'm like, "Hey, nice to meet you." And I literally knew in that moment that I was going to marry him. And I told Steve that a week later when we had the conversation, we're like, we are done. We have no hard feelings. We can move forward at being at peace. I told Steve, I said, I am going to marry Matt Frew. And he's like, you have said hi to this man. You know nothing about him. And I was like, I know. And I used to make fun of people for this, but I really think I'm going to marry him. He's like, okay, whatever. Actually, he said, you can't marry him. He's my friend. And I said, you divorced me. I can do whatever I want. He was like, fair, fair. Um, and so I went after Matt and pursued him, like was very clear that I wanted to date him. And he, at the time, we hung out a couple times. He's like, explain to me what's going on here. I don't know. I know Steve. I respect Steve. I know you guys have something. I don't really know the details. And he's like, okay, I've been dating this other girl named Jessica for long enough that I don't feel good about dating you both. And I want to see where it goes. And I would just tell him, let me know when you break up with her. Just let me know when you break up with her. And we would talk and off and on throughout the next 9 months while he dated her. And then one day he was like, I'm done. And we were married 8 weeks later.
Wow.
And we've been
And
married
you
11 years now.
that's what I wanted you to tell everyone. And you've been married
Yeah.
11 years now.
Yeah.
Wow. How the
So
Yeah. So how the one decision that, from the outside people will say, "What are you doing?"
the worst.
actually led to your destined decision. Wow. Yeah, Dr. Curry is here for all of it. She has been, she is like, great story.
Is
Yes.
crazy. But again, it was what was best for me. Like those dating Steve again was it was a complete mess, but it gave me the information I needed and the clarity to move forward. And I'm sure I would have met Matt some other way, but ironically enough, I met him through Steve in this situation. And it really did lead me toward the best decision I've made of my life. It was our marriage was really hard at the beginning. I don't want to discount that. Marriage in general is a mess, but second marriages are a mess.
Mm-hmm.
But
A lot of work.
I know, yes, beyond a shadow of a doubt that Matt was also, I'm supposed to be in his life. He's supposed to be a part of my life. So it's crazy, but it
Oh,
works. When you understand how to trust yourself and make decisions without that judgment and beating yourself up forever and release your ego to say, okay, that was the wrong thing. Let's keep going. It changes your life
right,
for
right.
the better.
Yes. And you just painted such a beautiful example of, okay, this is not it. And because you weren't stuck in the mire of the shame and the should, and you could actually see your future, you could see it so clearly. Matt couldn't even see it yet. You were like, no, I see this. I am clear. I am the decision making lab guru. I'm going to wait for you. You'll catch up.
Yeah,
I
he eventually got there. I dated plenty of other guys along the way. I had my fun, but every time I'd come home from a date, I'd tell my mom, Matt Frew needs to break up with his girlfriend and marry me. And she would just laugh. And then she was like, oh my gosh,
and here we are.
here we are.
Well, you have a process that has added value to your life and thousands of others' lives, tens of thousands, I would say. And you actually have an offer that is right around the corner that I want to make sure people, if they're like, yeah, this episode has fed me and I need more, I'd love for you to
Mhm.
share like what is on the horizon.
Yes. So currently, doors are open for the next round of the Decision Lab. I just opened them this morning, ironically enough. But the Decision Lab is 6 weeks towards your next best decision. It's one decision made, acted on during that 6 weeks. We take the time to go through this unshooting process. We take the time to understand who we are. And obviously, this is like a sprint of the Decision Lab. And we're not changing our whole lives in 6 weeks. We are picking one thing that's like, I'm going to feel this out. This is doable. I want to try this. And we move forward on that one thing. It has been so amazing to put people through this 6 week process. Things happen in 6 weeks. Clarity comes. It's when you put that intention there and that focus there of like, oh, yes, this is something I want. This is something I need. I want to be able to make decisions that are in alignment with who I am because we make decisions every day. It's like I say, that's the only thing that doesn't change is the fact that we have to make a decision or we don't make a decision and that's still a decision. So
Mhm.
you can go get signed up for the Decision Lab right now and join me in that. The official start date for it is September 9th, but you can get signed up today and take advantage of that and set yourself up powerfully over these next 6 weeks.
And what is that email address again for our listeners?
Yeah, you can go to nextbestdecision.com/decision lab to get signed up if you are looking for that. If you're like, I want more, then go get signed up right now. And in fact, I have a discount code that people can use that'll save you an additional $30. This is a very affordable program, but I'm like, I want to make sure people who are like, yes, let's go, like I reward that. So if you did use Decision Made at checkout, you can get another $30 off the price of that.
So I just want you to say it all because someone ran to get a pencil while you were just saying. So say all of that together again, the website and the promo code.
Yes, it is nextbestdecision.com/decision lab. And then the promo code is decision made.
And when I tell you all this is affordable, she is not kidding. She is literally giving you gold at pennies. So I encourage you, if you know you have been stuck, if you know you've been circling the thing, even if you and I've shared over and over again that my faith is important to me. I'm literally speaking to the one who you're saying, I'm praying
Mhm.
about it. I'm praying about it. Girl or young man, he is giving you the answer. Move. Move
Yep.
now. And to rewire your thinking so you don't get stuck in that loop again. Yes, we are giving you the resource right now to be able to connect, to be able to take power and confidence in your next decision. Jessica, I can't say thank you enough. It has just been, I I knew when I saw your light, I did not understand where or why, but I understood that there was light in you. There's a confidence, a boldness that absolutely drew me to you. So, yeah, take her at her word, folks.
Well,
Thank you
thank
again.
you. Thank you so much for having me. And one thing I want to say about you keep bringing up like the people who are praying, I always think God rewards action. Like whatever that action is, he responds to that. He's going to come and tell you like, "Oh, hey," he's going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, "I'm so glad you acted. This is the right direction." Or, "Hey, let's shift a little bit this way." But once you take the action, he's going to answer. He's going to answer.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I am so encouraged. There's so much. I know people are going to want to play this over and over again. If I can just remind our viewers and our listeners, please click follow so that you can stay on top of every single Flip Side of Adversity episode that comes out every Thursday. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe, people, subscribe. Do it, do it, do it. Click that button so that you can stay on top of all the good content and all of our guests. So, as I say every week, I can't wait to connect with you same time, same place next week on the flip side. We'll see you then.